I had a son through IVF, but after he was born, I began to feel something was wrong. He looked far too much like my ex-boyfriend. The problem was, that ex had already been dead for many years. My husband, Michael Walker, and I had been married for several years without being able to conceive. Under pressure from both families, we went to the hospital for a full round of infertility tests. The doctor eventually suggested assisted reproductive technology if we had no other options. We were already in our early 30s, our parents were eager for grandchildren, and so we reluctantly agreed. After ovarian stimulation, egg retrieval, sperm collection, blastocyst culture, and embryo transfer, I finally tested positive on the 14th day after the transfer. My love, we're finally going to have a baby. Michael held me, crying with joy. Yes, we were lucky it worked on the first try. Thank heaven, all the waiting was worth it. After years of infertility, that moment felt like pure happiness. 9 months later, I gave birth to a baby boy. Our families rushed around. Our parents hired expensive postpartum care services, and everyone treated the child like a treasure. When we left the care center a month later, our son Charlie had grown a lot. From less than 3 kilograms at birth, he had already reached nearly 5 kilograms, and his facial features were becoming more defined. Looking at his cute little face, I kept having this strange feeling of déjà vu. Michael and I both have small eyes, but Charlie was born with large ones, with obvious double eyelids. When he smiled, 2 deep dimples appeared. That smile reminded me of someone. I quickly suppressed the thought. Impossible, I told myself. IVF was done at the hospital. This child was 100% mine and Michael's. He was just handsome, and looks don't always perfectly match genes. Gradually, I felt relieved. Maybe Charlie had simply avoided some of our less attractive traits. As Charlie grew, Michael's career took off and he became busier. He only focused on work. Whenever Charlie got sick or needed to see a doctor, I was the one to handle it. He never helped. I thought it was just work stress, so I didn't push. Financially, we were comfortable, and since our parents were getting old, I didn't want to burden them. Eventually, I quit my job to become a full-time mom. In the blink of an eye, Charlie turned 4 and was ready for kindergarten. I enrolled him in a private school not far from home. Before starting, the school required a physical exam. I glanced at the report. Everything was normal, but then my eyes froze on the blood type, AB. Michael was type O, and I was type B. Basic genetics told me that a B-type parent and an O-type parent couldn't possibly produce an AB child. Had the hospital made a mistake? I wrestled with it for days. Could Charlie not be ours? But even if there had been a mistake, I had already raised him for 4 years. I loved him. I'd rather live with the error. That day, Charlie looked up at me with big eyes. "Mommy, what are you thinking? Come play with me." I forced a smile. "Charlie, read your picture book for now. I'll make lunch. You're going to school soon. You have to practice using a fork and spoon." At lunch, I gave him a practice set of utensils. He picked up the fork with his left hand and ate smoothly. When I asked him to switch to his right hand, he couldn't manage. Switching back to the left, he was steady again. That's when I realized Charlie was left-handed. I laughed and said casually, "Haha, so you're a lefty. You'll probably write with your left hand too." But the moment the words left my mouth, my heart skipped. The dimples, the left hand, that smile, they all reminded me of one person, Ethan Brooks. My ex-boyfriend. Dead for 10 years, Ethan and I had been in love, talking about marriage, when he suddenly died in a car crash. The accident report said he was speeding and collided head-on with another vehicle. For over a year I was shattered. Michael was the one who stayed by my side, comforting me, until I finally accepted his proposal, but Charlie was 4 years old. Counting back pregnancy, I had parted with Ethan over 4 years earlier. He had already been gone for almost 5 or 6 years by then. How could Charlie possibly be his? I didn't know Ethan's blood type, but I knew Charlie's couldn't match Michael's. These questions stabbed at me like needles. Could it all just be coincidence? The dimples, the left-handedness, the resemblance. I took Charlie to a clinic for another blood test. Again, AB. That evening at dinner, I couldn't hide my distraction. Michael asked what was wrong. I brushed it off. He suggested hiring help, but I refused. Charlie was starting school, and I didn't want strangers in the house. A few days later, I decided to secretly get a DNA test. I submitted samples from Charlie and me to a private lab. While waiting for the results, I went back to the fertility clinic and asked a sensitive question. "Doctor, can sperm from a deceased man still be used for IVF?" The doctor replied calmly, "Yes. Within 72 hours of death, sperm can be retrieved and frozen. It has been done in other countries." My heart pounded. Who else but Ethan's parents would want to preserve his genes? He had been their only child. I still remembered their grief at his funeral. 5 days later, the DNA results arrived. The conclusion: Claire Bennett is confirmed as the biological mother of Charlie. The likely biological father, Ethan Brooks. My world turned upside down. I contacted Ethan's mother, Margaret Brooks, and arranged to meet her at a cafe. She had aged, her hair nearly white, but her voice was steady. After a few pleasantries, I asked, "Auntie, do you know Ethan's blood type?" She thought, then said, "I think it was A, but I'm not sure." I pressed further. "Did you and your husband preserve his sperm after he passed?" She stayed calm, sipped her coffee, and finally spoke. She told me Ethan had been their pride, handsome, smart, full of promise. Then her tone darkened. "Do you really think my son's death was an accident?" She said they had checked his call logs. His last call had been from Michael, while Ethan was driving. My body went cold. I tried to respond, but she cut me off. "You two were close with my son. He thought he could build a future with you. But then he died. You owe us a child." Her words blurred my vision. Back home, I wrestled with whether to tell Michael. If I told him, he'd know Charlie wasn't his biological son. Our life would shatter. And what about that phone call? What exactly had Michael said to Ethan before the crash? Memories rushed back. College days, the three of us inseparable. Ethan and Michael were roommates in computer science. I studied journalism. We often ate together, hung out, seemed like ordinary friends. But I remembered one night before break, we played an escape room game. In the dark, someone grabbed me and kissed me hard. I couldn't see who it was, but I suspected Michael. Later, his red face confirmed it. He had secretly loved me all along. After college, both men became programmers. Michael later started his own company and found success. Ethan and I stayed in touch until his sudden death. Michael eventually proposed, and I accepted. But now, Michael discovered the DNA report in my drawer. He exploded. "What the hell is this? Why did you test Charlie?" I confessed my suspicions that Ethan's parents might have somehow swapped the sperm during IVF. Michael's face twisted in rage. He demanded to know about the last call. Finally, he admitted, in college, he had been obsessed with me, jealous of Ethan. He had manipulated situations to make Ethan insecure, stoking rivalry. On the phone that night, he had threatened Ethan, telling him he would come and deal with him. Ethan, furious, had sped off and never survived the crash. I trembled hearing this. Michael justified it as love, but it was twisted. I broke down, confessing my own past with Ethan, that he had been controlling, emotionally manipulative, even forced me into repeated abortions that damaged my body. The doctors had warned me then that my fallopian tubes might be scarred. Those confessions cut through our marriage like knives. Michael fell silent, torn between anger, guilt, and shame. The trust between us was broken. Charlie was my biological son. Yes, but his father's shadow loomed over everything. In our small town, life went on. Neighbors greeted us. Charlie went to school. Snow fell and melted with the seasons. But every time I saw his smile, I felt both fierce love and unbearable weight. Michael chose silence, burying everything under work. I carried the guilt. Years passed. Charlie grew, but the truth remained like thorns on the path ahead. And Michael and I had no choice but to keep walking through a marriage haunted by secrets, betrayal, and the ghost of a man long gone.